Sudan's army has agreed to extend a truce for another 72 hours in the country's civil war. The deal was mediated by the US and Saudi Arabia starting from 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time today. A number of Australians stranded in Sudan are starting to arrive home after fleeing the ongoing civil conflict. Just under 160 Australians were known to be in the war-torn country at the start of the week. The Prime Minister did address the conflict as recently as yesterday.
We would call upon all sides of the conflict in Sudan to refrain from the violence that is occurring in Sudan. But we're also working with our allies, including the United Kingdom, to make sure that our people in Sudan are looked after.
Joining me now is Dr. Mark Deng, a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Melbourne. For more on this, thanks for your time. Just charting where this has come from, effectively we're seeing the military and the paramilitary try to contest for power. And was this almost set up by the previous dictator? Because we saw effectively with Omar al-Bashir that he wanted some contest, if you like, between these two security forces. Maybe it would have helped avoid a coup. So is that the sort of, if you want, the best background and context for what's happening in terms of this power struggle?
Well, thanks for having me, Tom. What is happening in Sudan is very complex. As you know, Sudan was ruled by a dictator for 3 decades, and that dictator is Omar al-Bashir, who was removed from power in 2019. And so what happened was there was a transitional government that was formed, and that government was made up of military elements and civilian elements. And so the government was supposed to go for elections in 2021. But in 2021, the military leaders within the government, they staged a coup and dissolved the government and then formed a military government. And they promised that they will go for elections in 2023. Now, as with any transition from military rule to democracy, there are requirements that have to be met before elections could be conducted. And one requirement is integrating the two militaries, the Sudanese armed forces led by General Burhan and the paramilitary unit led by General Dagalo. So the two military leaders were working on integrating their forces together, but according to reports, they disagree on who should be the leader of the military. So that led to tensions and ultimately to confrontations on 15 April 2023. Now, the question you asked, whether President Bashir is behind this, the answer is that it's likely. I haven't seen any reports about him being involved in this crisis that is happening in Sudan, but I think it's likely that he's probably behind this crisis.
And I guess, sorry to jump in, and I guess the issue is, what was set up behind him as well that was always sitting there, these sort of loyalties. So as you describe it there, the transition to, at any stage for any country, from that dictatorship to democracy is always a difficult one. But essentially, that's what's broken away here. Conflicting agendas from the military and the paramilitary, and that's been laid bare now. What hope that this gets resolved in some way, do you think?
Well, I hope the two leaders recognize the importance of restoring peace and stability to the country, because that is right now what is in the interest of the people of Sudan. And I think that's what needs to be stressed. I've seen foreign governments talking about this, but I do think that those foreign governments that are close to these two leaders need to use their rapport to get these two leaders to compromise for peace for the country. I fear that if this crisis is allowed to drag on, I think what happened in Yemen could happen in Sudan, because there are various foreign governments with their own interests in Sudan that may support either side to the conflict.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
feel
and
that
it ramps
something
up and it becomes an arms war of some sort, and that's the fear, isn't it? That a people finally coming out of a dictatorship then get scuttled, and they think they can sort of finally get on with a chance at democracy and all the positivity it can bring, and this is the alternative.
Yes. Well, what I stress and what I think the two leaders need to recognize, and also the foreign government need to emphasize strongly, is that they need to compromise, because they can fight each other as long as they want, but in the end, I think they will come back to a negotiating table to negotiate a peace for the country. Sudan has been through periods of civil wars, and for example, South Sudan fought Sudan for 20 years, but in the end, the warring parties came back to negotiate a peace agreement that led to the secession of South Sudan from Sudan. So war can never be won, and I think that's something that these warring parties and their partners need to recognize, that what will work is a negotiated peace agreement that can bring the country back to political stability and peace that is needed in the country right now.
Dr. Mark Deng, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.